And the next vulnerability in our list is broken access control. And this really goes hand in hand with broken authentication. So where the authentication piece is about your username and password and your login and whether there is a login or not and how good your password is. Broken access control is more about the use of roles. So imagine a system where everybody has a valid login. It does not mean that everybody should then be able to do the same stuff once they enter the system. And that's going back to my examples about work or about school or a hospital or a insurance or financial company. You think about, I suppose, a student and a professor shouldn't have the same abilities inside a system. Like, for example, a student shouldn't be able to see other students' grades. And maybe even a professor shouldn't be able to see the grades of students from another professor's course. If any of those things are possible, then we have broken access control, improper authorization implementation. And the way that this happens is that sometimes when we use certain web application frameworks or certain tools, they give us some resource schemes for accessing things via URL. So suppose if we say /user/1 in our URLs, then we might be tempted to try /user/2 to see if we can access the other user's profile. And that's a very simple example, but it actually happens. And so when IDs are very obvious or they're accessible, if any of the obvious identifying data is easily manipulated and requests can be sent back to the application with spoofed, meaning faked or made up data or manipulated data beyond what a user should technically be doing in the system. If the system is not expecting that, then sometimes the system might just return what the user is looking for, what the attacker is looking for, because the system thinks, oh, this is a valid request. I'm not going to check it any further. And so if resources are located at obvious places, on the one hand, it's good because it means that there's some sort of RESTful design, perhaps to the API of the system, but it also means that the access control, the authorization is broken. And we talked about the manipulation of requests. So what this means is that if somebody can change a request in order to send a valid request that they were not meant to the system, and the system does nothing, that means that authorization is not working correctly. And of course, the other thing is if their roles are too coarse-grained. So suppose if we say there's only a manager and an employee in a system. And so a manager can really do anything that is in the admin level, and then an employee can't. So, an employee won't be able to do certain things like look at salaries or change salaries, but then if the roles don't reflect the actual hierarchical structure of an organization, then, the CEO and the vice presidents and the directors and the senior managers and the managers all have one role in the system. And when they log in, they can kind of all see similar stuff. And it all depends on the honor system. Everybody says like, hey, don't touch that because, that's not your job. And then you know that your roles are too coarse-grained and you have problems with your access control. And that's going to result in either some data getting manipulated incorrectly, some sensitive data leaking out, other potential financial implications, scandals. I mean, so many things can happen when you don't have the right level of access control in your systems and you don't have roles that actually reflect how things work in your organization or in the industry for which the software, the web application is built. And so that's why this one is a pretty important one that a lot of people get wrong. A lot of people don't keep up with maintaining roles in their web applications. And one of the problems, just from my experience of years of working on things like this, is that sometimes access control can actually get pretty much baked in, hard-coded into the code of applications. And if that happens, then people are less willing to change roles and change what roles can do later on. And that's where a lot of problems start with kind of updating administrative privileges or making it less coarse-grained. And that can be the source of some real issues for systems as they evolve.